I don't know, man. I'm a little disappointed, if I'm gonna be honest with you. Hey everyone, so I'm re-recording this because I wanted to provide a little bit more context, make it a little bit more clear that what I'm reviewing is a pre-production sample of the Foxtrot Mike ranch rifle, and I know that some changes have been made to it, and a prototype upper from Foxtrot Mike, which is gonna be released at SHOT Show this year. So I wanted to put that in a little bit better context because after 2 failed range days in a row, I was a little bit bitter. And I think I just want to put that in a little bit better context for you guys. So the Foxtrot Mike ranch rifle. A lot of people really are excited about this gun, myself included, many people in the state of California and other restrictive states, even people in free states are excited about this gun. This is not meant to be a competitor to an AR-15. It's not meant to be an AR-15. It's meant to be its own thing. Now, this Foxtrot Mike bufferless ranch rifle lower receiver does work with different bufferless AR uppers like the Foxtrot Mike Gen 2 uppers, this unreleased prototype upper, as well as the BRN 180. There's other bufferless options on the market, but it's unclear at this point which ones will work other than the BRN 180 and the Foxtrot Mike Gen 2 uppers, as well as this unreleased, soon to be released bufferless upper. I have some problems, or I had some problems, and hopefully those problems have since been resolved. Hopefully I will be able to fix my issues very quickly and easily by replacing the hammer and disconnect in the lower receiver, and then hopefully now my upper will work since I replaced the broken guide rod from the recoil spring assembly with the newly installed one, and it seemed to fix that issue. It's just once I fix that issue, I'm basically chasing ghosts at this point. The lower receiver then had an issue where the trigger was just being a dead trigger and it was hanging up on, the hammer was hanging up on the disconnect, basically giving me a mushy dead trigger, and I would have to cycle the round and cycle the action. So in this video, I'm going to quickly talk about my thoughts on this platform as a whole because I do really like it. I think it's very interesting. I think it's very neat. Then I'm going to show you the features on the tabletop, give you a better breakdown, better look at the actual parts themselves. And then we're going to talk about magazine compatibility, which might be fixed on the newer production models. We're going to talk about accuracy, which I think was fairly acceptable for a budget or mid-tier upper price range. Then we're going to talk about my reliability issues that I had. Unfortunately, I think that the design of the guide rod spring is inherently weak at the point that it broke, because the point that it broke is the very obvious part and section where it would probably break, and it's made of plastic and is very, very similar and has the same weak point on the current production Foxtrot Mike Gen 2 uppers. Maybe this has been fixed in the new production line. I hope it gets fixed before these uppers start shipping because I see that as an issue. Now, I'm not an engineer. I'm not a machinist by trade. I'm not a gunsmith. This is just one random dude on the internet who happened to get a little bit of clout and now gets to do cool things as a side gig because it's fun to shoot guns and talk about things because we can make a difference in this state and other states. So I'm actually pretty bummed about my experience not being stellar because when I first saw this, I was very excited. I think that it's a very cool concept. I know a lot of people in restrictive states would like to have an option that they can just buy and not have to worry about it getting banned next year. And that's a huge bonus. But people in free states are also still really enjoying this firearm because it seems to provide a good form factor that's good for being a ranch rifle, as it's marketed as well as this could be a very good self-defense option because it uses standard AR-15 mags and is semi-auto. You can get 30, 60, 100 round mags if you wanted to. Now, I wouldn't show you any of those on YouTube because that's against YouTube policy, and this is hopefully going to get monetized, not for the money, more so for the views, because demonetized videos do not get nearly as many views, regardless of what YouTube says. All in all, when this gun was working, it was fantastic. I really thought that I was gonna have a hard time with this trigger that I will show you in the detailed overview. The trigger is unique. It breaks at an upward angle instead of sweeping from the bottom. And I thought I was gonna have a hard time with that, but I actually really enjoyed it. It's very easy to stay on target with this gun. It's fairly accurate, or one of the more accurate ARs, especially in this price range that you're gonna get. It's got some cool functions and features with the upper receiver that make it, in theory, a little bit more bomb-proof, other than the guide rod spring assembly, which I had an issue with. I like the way it shoots. It's comfortable, it stays on target, it recoils very smoothly, and it comes right back on target very quickly. With some ARs, they recoil up or to the side a little bit differently. This gun seems to shoot very, very pleasantly, and I liked the idea of it. I really wanted this to be successful, and at first it was great. I loved it, but unfortunately my pre-production and prototype model has not been up to what I would consider my standard of reliability. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. Keep in mind, I know that there are hundreds and hundreds of these things out on the market currently, production models, and I've yet to see anyone say they've had an issue with it. And I think that's a huge point to take away from this, that other people have not been having issues. My prototype and pre-production models have been having issues, and it seems like some of the issues I've had might have been resolved, specifically in the lower receiver. The upper, this being a prototype that's not even supposed to be announced until January, that about checks out as far as what you would expect from a prototype like this. Hopefully I'll get my hands on new parts and a new upper, and I'll be able to give you a better review in the future, which I do plan on doing because I know a lot of people that watch this channel are probably going to be very interested in this gun. Seems like I'm the only guy having a problem on a consistent basis with my prototype gun, and I guess, yeah, that sounds about right, doesn't it? So we'll do an overview of all the parts. We'll do a magazine compatibility test. We'll do a accuracy test, and then I'll talk about more specifically my malfunctions that I had, and I'm going to show you that recorded from yesterday when I was very bitter, because I think bitter people go very hard on products that are not working, and I think that would be just a good thing to kind of take a look at, and I'll show you very up close the broken and a properly assembled recoil guide rod spring, or a properly functioning recoil guide rod and spring. Let me know what you guys think down below. Share this with a friend. Are you interested in this gun? Are you hopeful about this gun? Do you own one of these? Let me know. Thank you. Now, since Garand Thumb has coined the term tip to butt, we're gonna go ass to mouth. So starting at the rear, this lower receiver uses Remington 870 stocks. I'll separate the upper and the lower apart just so you have a better idea of what we're working with. This is the heart of the gun. It is compatible with either Foxtrot Mike upper receivers that are bufferless or the BRN 180. Some people have said that they've put a PSA jackal on this, but Foxtrot Mike has not confirmed that they work. I think they've gone as far as to say that the only ones that they confirm work with their lower, this ranch rifle lower, is the Foxtrot Mike upper or the BRN 180. So it uses Remington 870 stocks. This one is from Magpul. I put the taller comb height on it, and we'll talk about that when we get to the optic and the upper. The magazine release is a push button style mag release that is reversible. So as a right-handed shooter, when I shoot the gun, I can press there and then pull the trigger. If you're a lefty, you can reverse that. Now, yes, that does mean that when you want to take it off safe, you kind of have to break your grip, but this is just a compromise. I believe they are working on a modification to allow you to use some sort of standard style of safety, but it would not be an actual standard safety because the detent is held in from the top instead of from the bottom, or like on a traditional AR. The trigger itself is pretty interesting. Now I'm gonna drop the trigger so I can just show you the action. Instead of breaking down, it pivots up, which is a little bit interesting to get used to. And to be honest, if you wing your arm out more, I find that it can be a little bit easier to shoot it quickly. This trigger is not the lightest trigger in the world, to be honest. I'm gonna be quite frank with you. This is more of a duty weight. However, you can replace the hammer and the disconnect on the inside, or the disconnector, and the springs, some of the springs, with lighter springs, or maybe like a enhanced polished nickel hammer and disconnect, which would improve the trigger pull a little bit. But I believe Q1 of next year, they are coming out with aftermarket trigger assemblies that should take this into more of the Gucci realm that many on the AR are familiar with. Now, since you grab it here, the mag release all the way up there. I have pretty long fingers. I wear a size XL glove, but realistically, I would like to wear a 2X, but since I have slim hands, 2X, I'm just swimming in it. So I wear a size XL glove. I would not be able to drop a mag without completely breaking my grip off the gun, which is why I recommend picking up a ambi mag release. The ones that work are the ones that have the standard shape. If you try to get like a forward control designs or one of the ones with a big paddle, it will not work. I believe Odin makes a mag release like this. Maybe some other companies out there, but I would talk to Foxtrot Mike about which ones they would recommend, because this is what they recommended to me. But it might be different, as this was a pre-production model. This was technically a prototype, not really a prototype. This was just, they made some modifications to the gun, and I don't want you to go out and buy what I bought, only for it to have been different on the production models. So that's the lower receiver, ambi reversible safety, which is actually pretty easy to take off of safe, and it's not that difficult to put back onto safe. The trigger is unique, but the hammer and the disconnect are standard, so you could swap those out with like some polished nickel ones. We'll talk about magazine compatibility in a moment in its own section, but the bottom line is all the metal mags that I used went in and dropped free cleanly. Some polymer mags dropped out freely, but some of them required you to pull it out, which isn't that big of a deal, because if you're going, you can either, with a second mag in your hand, press that, pull it out, or when you're coming off, drop it out, grab a new one, put it in. Again, this is marketed as a ranch rifle, not a war weapon of war. The upper receiver that I used and had for review, scope was sent to me by Foxtrot Mike. This is a Swamp Fox, one of the new ones. I don't even know if they sell these yet, but it's a 34mm tube. I initially had standard cantilever mounts for this that they sent with it, but I found that it was too high because the upper receiver is about 1/4 inch taller than a standard AR upper, and the reason for that is that it stores the recoil spring assembly inside of the upper. This is what the recoil spring assembly looks like. It's a little guide rod that slides inside of the bolt. There's better pictures online, but this is held captive back here. It's pretty easy to take apart. I know Mac from Military Arms Channel had a really hard time taking the upper receiver apart, and he made that a big part of his video. Skill issue, TBH. This is obviously not a standard buffer part, not a standard upper receiver part. Some of the parts in the bolt carrier group are standard, but as you can see, the bolt carrier is actually just this little, it's basically cut in half right at the back where the firing pin ends. So modified, the bolt I believe is standard, the firing pin I think is standard. There's some other standard parts, but there's a lot of non-standard parts. I would recommend maybe picking up some spares if that's your kind of thing that you like to do. Now, since, like I said, I took the original mount off and used lower rings, this with a 34mm scope is a 1.26 height. I think these are the Arkin medium height, which I think is similar to the Vortex Optics medium height. This is a 1:6 LPVO. I do like that the top turret is locking. You can just pull it up, but this review is not about the optics. Now, with this forward charging handle, it's actually pretty neat. As a 6'2", 220-pound shooter, just to give you a frame of reference, my arms aren't super long for my height, but I have a very comfortable time grabbing it right here behind it. This charging handle does not reciprocate. This is currently on the left-hand side. I don't know how you're viewing it. Maybe you're looking in a mirror or something. But I put the charging handle on the left-hand side as a right-hand shooter. I put my thumb behind it because even though it's not reciprocating, if you were to be back here and put pressure rearward while it's cycling, that bolt is gonna slam this forward and that just seems uncomfortable to me. So it actually works out pretty nice. I put my pressure pad for my light right up at the top. So I grab it like this. It is not going anywhere. It's not being pulled back to the rear. Put a Magpul bipod on it because it's fairly light and it gets the job done. From the factory on the muzzle device, it comes with a muzzle brake because this is the state of California and this is a featureless rifle. I just put this little blast deflector over and keep it on there for the most part because I like to reduce the amount of annoyance that I provide to people, or at least on the range. I like to bother people on the internet. Something that I'm not really gonna be able to show you very well is that the gas block is actually integrated into the barrel, so that is never coming loose. You're never gonna lose the gas block because it is part of the barrel, and I think that's pretty neat. So those are the features of this gun. Let's show you some footage on the range. So just gonna show you some magazine compatibility. I have here a variety of magazines that work pretty well. This is the ASC magazine. I think these used to be called C Product Defense, but comes right out, no problem, even when it's not vertical. Duramags, or no, these are OK Industries magazines. Goes in, drops out. This is with the bolt closed. Goes in, drops out. This is a Lancer magazine with these steel reinforced lips. Goes in, pops out. For the people in California or restricted states, you're likely going to be interested in this gun, so I use this Cross Industries 1010 mag. If you're going to get a 10 round magazine, I recommend something that's coupled like this. Comes out, comes out. This mag, which some of you might remember from a long time ago, this mag is absolutely beat to shit. It doesn't go into a lot of different magazine wells because the back is a little bit warped. Takes a significant amount of effort to get in and out, but again, this magazine is absolutely clocked out. Now, if you have Freedom Week D60 mags, or if you live in an unrestricted state, this might be interesting to you. D60 does not drop free even with a loaded D60. This is a MFT magazine, goes in fine, needs to be pulled out. Same thing with the Gen 2 PMag. It pops out just a little bit, but not enough. Hex mag, don't know what gen this is, don't care, don't use hex mags. Gen 3 windowed PMag. Wow, that one actually came out. Okay, so that one worked. Put that one in the good pile. Gen 2 windowed actually no, this is also a Gen 3 windowed PMag. Okay, so for the magazines that drop free, perfectly fine. Gen 3 windowed PMags, OK Industries metal magazines, the Cross Industries or Cross 1010 mag, ASC magazine, and the Lancer work fine. The beat to shit mag does not work. The Magpul D60 does not drop free. MFT does not drop free. Hex mag does not drop free. Gen 2 non-windowed PMag did not drop free. But all in all of the magazines feed reliably. I am now running into some issues, as you saw earlier, though. So let's do some accuracy testing. I'm going to shoot it at 50 yards for a variety of ammo because I have a better target setup. I'm not shooting in the most ideal conditions. I'm just going to be shooting from my butt, sitting on this, resting it on my tailgate, shooting at exactly 50 yards. I have some Wolf 5.56, some Lake City 223, some 5.56 77 grain Black Hills OTMs, which I got from Last Shot AZ, which is the ammo sponsor, so check them out. Free shipping over $2.99, no sales tax anywhere outside of the state of Arizona. Got to use code Reno for that free shipping though. 77 grain OTMs. Okay, went into battery. The locked back functioned fine with the Cross 1010 mag and the 77 grain OTMs. Storing all my ammo in this random pouch from Savior Equipment. These are the standard size ones. You can get the minis. So this is the Wolf 5.56. Now it's technically 5.56, but I hear a lot of people say that it's loaded pretty soft. 5.56 from Wolf. This was probably bought about 2 years ago. Light strike, unfortunate. Really shanked that one. It's possible that I shanked it. It's also possible that it was going to be a little bit off anyway, but the first four were fucking practically touching. Now we're shooting at steel, which is not the most reliable indicator of grouping size, but we're just doing this to give you an idea of what the gun can do. Now we're just gonna do the steel case. This is Tula. I probably purchased this about 3 years ago, so is this indicative of what you would get if you bought new? Again, every time that you've seen me have to kind of fiddle with this, it's because it's not going all the way into battery, and I'm seeing that, which is annoying. These four right here, boom, 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 those and this here were all part of the Wolf 55 grain 5.56. Like I said, I absolutely shanked this one. These four right here are all pretty good, about the size of my thumb, just the one knuckle. At 50 yards, I'm fine with that. I absolutely shanked this one. This bottom target down here, boom, 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 actually boom, 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 boom. So 4 of the 77 grain OTMs were right there. And then I definitely let one a little bit low. As you can see, not the most precision targets, not the most precision setup. This is where it gets messy. The first several rounds were the Lake City Winchester white box, which is 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now, the Wolf was shot, I aimed here, and the Wolf 55 grain 223 shot there, shot there, shot there, shot there, shot there. So at 50 yards with the Wolf, I'm shooting pretty damn big groups. Not terrible with the Winchester white box, not terrible with the Wolf, considering that I just absolutely shanked that bad boy. And the 77 grain is OTMs are pretty good. I know I let that one go. Again, not the biggest precision shooter. I'm more of a bump fire into trash kind of guy, and not the most precision setup. Now we're gonna talk about some of those reliability issues that you saw. Now let's talk about my journey of shooting this gun. First day that I get it out, I shoot 300 rounds, and during those first 300, I noticed at a couple points in time, I had a dead trigger, where it cycled a new round into the gun, but the trigger was just completely dead. I was pulling, but nothing was happening. I discovered at about 300 rounds when I popped the gun open, because I thought this is completely unacceptable, that something has to be wrong. Maybe a primer popped in there and it's lodged, because that can happen. Well, when I opened it up, I found that there was a gas ring in there, or what looked to be an AR-15 gas ring. Maybe I'll have a photo showing up over here. Well, I took that gas ring out, and the gun functioned perfectly for another 300 rounds that same day. So in one day, I had 300 rounds where maybe 4 or 5 times I had a dead trigger. Kind of a bummer, but Foxtrot Mike does say, when you get this gun, run it wet and break it in. Shoot a couple hundred rounds through it, which honestly I recommend for most guns that people get. Shoot the gun a little bit before you have to rely on it, right? So I shot 300 rounds with a few issues here and there, then fixed the issue. Another 300 rounds, perfect, beautiful. Shooting this gun is very pleasant. It stays very flat. It's easy to be accurate with this gun. It's easy to stay on target. All in all, I was very excited about this gun. I had 600 rounds of really no problem with the gun. The way that gas ring got introduced was not from the upper receiver itself. Workbench, fairly messy. It's been much worse. When I first got it, I took it apart, kind of just took a look at all the parts. I wiped it down because there was a lot of like lube on it or whatever. I wiped it down just to kind of take a look at it. The rag that I had on it, I believe, had a gas ring from a previous gun I was working on, and that's how it got introduced, because the gas rings in the upper were all there. I told Foxtrot Mike about this, and what they did was they sent me out a new bolt carrier assembly and 2 new recoil springs and guide rods. Everything seemed totally fine. I get out to the range on Friday, today is Saturday. I shoot 3 mags through it, so 90 rounds, totally fine. I'm excited, I'm happy, I'm having a good time. I load the 4th mag in there, and 5 of the 30 rounds, or sorry, this is YouTube, 5 of the 29 rounds did not go off. They had a light primer strike. So what was happening was the gun would cycle, and then it wouldn't go all the way into battery. So it'd be out just ever so slightly. And so when the hammer would drop, it would go all the way into battery. And now, That sucks that I was getting malfunctions after just 3 mags on my second day of shooting it. I was unhappy with that. I was unpleased with that. So I was kind of confused why all of a sudden I was getting the situation where it wasn't going all the way into battery and I was getting light primer strikes. Now granted, I would prefer that the gun does not go off while it's not in battery. The gun going off while it's not in battery, bad. It could have been a bad day for me. Carry first aid equipment with you. But I'm glad that it didn't go off. That's good, that's a win technically, but I thought it was because the gun was a little dry. Maybe, whatever. It looked a little bit dry after shooting 30 or 90 rounds pretty quickly. So I lubed the hell out of the bolt carrier group, and then it seemed to not have that issue when I was just dry cycling rounds through. I thought I fixed it. Great, good job. The problem only got worse and worse until the point where you saw that clip where I was trying to start, I felt like I was at a point where I need to get this on film. I really need to show it. I thought maybe I'll be able to get some content so that the beginning of this video is exciting shooting footage at least, right? Unfortunately, after being so unpleased, I found out the culprit. The recoil guide rod and spring had broken. Now I'm gonna show you a photo overlaying a properly intact one that's brand new, unused, and then I'm gonna show you the broken one right next to each other so you can see a comparison. The guide rod, or part of the guide rod itself, actually broke, which was causing the bolt to not be able to reliably go all the way back and load around in and not go into battery properly because the spring was basically being bound up and held up because part of the guide rod had broken. I thought to myself, well, at least I found out that the problem is in the upper receiver and I know what the problem is and I have a replacement part. I thought everything was good because I went out shooting the next day, which is today, and I had a new issue happen. Impacted round, get a new one in, dead trigger again. Dead trigger. Dead trigger. Now, the issue that I had was I was shooting a round, it was ejecting a round, putting a new round all the way into battery, and then the trigger was dead. At the time, I didn't quite know what was going on until I popped the upper and lower off, and I realized that the gun, when I fire it, or when I pull the trigger, and it cycles the round back to the rear, locking the bolt carrier, or locking the hammer to the rear, it was not resetting the trigger. So basically, it was firing, locking onto the disconnect, I was letting go of the trigger, and it was just hanging on for whatever reason. And it would not, yep, there it is. Oh, never mind. And it was not allowing the trigger to actually disconnect. I don't know exactly how it works, but it was not firing because the hammer was staying locked onto the disconnect. I'm not sure how that's possible, but that is the problem that I was experiencing. So, gas ring problem, not a big deal. User error, skill issue, L+ ratio. Is that what the Zoomers are saying? Guide rod breaking, big problem. Gun was basically non-functional. Replace the guide rod with a new one. Now the lower doesn't work. I don't know how much more I can say this, but I'm very let down. Hopefully Foxtrot Mike is able to fix this and remedy this issue, and I will be doing a video review in the future. At this current point in time, I can maybe recommend getting the lower, but the upper had a major issue and the lower is now not functioning reliably. Now, since I've gotten it home, I have not been able to replicate that issue, but that issue shouldn't have been present in the first place, and that's why I'm having a hard time with this review. I really like the people over at Foxtrot Mike. They sent me a free gun, and that's pretty cool. They're very nice. They're building a product that is desirable for people in the state of California, which is most of my audience. They're building a gun that's neat enough to be technically legal in most states, and yet people in free states also want this gun. And my experience of this pre-production model has been less than stellar. I want to reiterate, I want this gun to be good. I want to have a good time with this gun because it's neat. It fits very neatly under the seat of a truck. It fits very neatly in a scabbard. It fits very neatly on an ATV. It would be a great ranch rifle, if you will. But unfortunately, my experience has not been that great, and I want it to be better. I really, really want this to be successful. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. You guys know the drill. Have fun, be safe, stay dangerous. Peace.